Here. Right there. You know, I can just take it along. Wait a minute, I sent her out for the thing and then I said,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. It's beautiful.
Building.
It's beautiful. Oh.
Take a tumble.
Right now, I don't need it.
Wednesday, looking at this one.
I want to absolutely. That is gorgeous. This must be the beautiful. I loved it. I watched both of them. I wanted to get invited to the wedding, so you know, I should follow the videos. My mom. Yeah. Oh, she had all the kids in it. They were adorable. Yeah,
Oh, we got enough chairs. So, yeah. I would say it's just like school. No one's. Oh, nice. Cool.
that's sweet.
Andy, how you doing?
Yeah, they were all delicious. Yeah. Hmm.
And I think.
When I was down south, I was totally good. I would like to see it for maybe. I would never know supposed to be lights. Yeah.
Well, those are really, if you turn them, you really can't see the screen. But we turn those on, we turn these off. You really get the screen out. Which isn't really conducive to a large. Sure, watch your step. Yeah, cords running out.
Then I got.
Or you. What seconds?
Oh, yeah. No.
Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and for all. Is there a motion to approve this evening's agenda? So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Number 4, if you don't have an agenda, there were some on the back table, and maybe they're all gone. But number 4 is public comment. We have public comment at the beginning and end of every town board meeting. This is there are 2 public hearings scheduled for tonight. So during public comment, you can speak about anything you'd like, including what's what's on the agenda for the 2 public hearings. However, you can speak about anything else that comes to mind as well, or you can wait until we actually do the public hearing regarding the specific law that's being considered. Are there enough seats, ma'am? Do you have a seat? Do we need to get more? We've got a bunch in that closet. You sure? Sorry about that. So at this time, we'll open it up for public comment. We ask you please provide your name, your address, limit your comments to 3 minutes or less until we have a chance for everyone to speak who wishes to speak. At the end of that time, if there's somebody who wants to speak for another 3 minutes, we'll go through the same cycle all over again. Is there anybody who'd like to speak during public comment?
Well, I'm Christine Brush, 16 Magnolia Road, Mendon. So I sent a letter to you guys. Do you want me to read the letter that we sent? Or?
Sure. And you can go to the podium. You can stand at your seat, sit at your seat, whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay. See if I can find it.
I'm sorry about the center lights, but if we turn those on, you won't be able to see the screen.
So we're the Mendon Business Association, Mendon Community Business Association. Most of us over here. And first couple of seats here. So I wrote a letter. Well, we collectively wrote a letter to the town board. It says, thank you for this opportunity to voice our opinion about the proposed short-term rental law, I-2023. Our business organization called Mendon Community Business Association, MCBA, gathered on April 18th to collectively discuss this proposed law. As a group, we would like to bring our concerns to the attention of the town board, because you guys will be creating the law. We would also like to preface our concerns with some background on why the agenda of this meeting tonight is so important to us. The MCBA is committed to promoting Mendon as a destination for tourism, travel, events, and more. Providing housing for visitors into our area is important for keeping people in our town to shop, dine, drink, and enjoy our many recreational opportunities. In addition, small business owners wear many hats. We would appreciate further conversation regarding the burden some of these requirements put on us. So below is a summary of our immediate concerns. The short-term rental law proposed I-2023 is very extensive. It has some items that are even more stringent than those in the proposed B&D law. The zoning limitations on where a short-term rental could be considered are very restrictive. None are allowed in RA1, RA2, RA5, or RS30. So basically only allowed in the business zone, which is very small in Mendon. The application process requires many steps, and some that put costly burdens on our property for seeking this permit. One such example would be like requiring a blueprint drawing. So that's really expensive, and most of us don't have those types of things done already. Like, you know, I'm a historic building, so I'm not like, I don't have a plan of my building right now. The parking requirements and occupancy limits need further consideration. The compliance list to even apply for a permit is extensive. We got to talk about the refuse area, distance between short-term rentals, notification to adjacent property owners, parking requirements, and on and on. This is a very detailed process, which appears to lean more towards discouraging the potential for short-term rentals rather than supporting it in a collaborative way. Respectfully submitted, members of the Mendon Community Business Association. I can list their names if you want me to.
I've got a copy, so I'll give that to Michelle. If she has any questions about any of the signatures, I'll have her contact you.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak at this point in time?
I'm Hillary Scott, and I'm part of the MCBA, and she spoke to the business aspect of it, which we own the Cottage Hotel,
Can I interrupt you? Could you please provide your address?
75 Lane Path Road.
Thank you.
So I actually wanted to speak to you as a 75 Lane Path Road resident, since we already spoke to with the letter as business owners in the hamlet, because as a resident, I'm outside of the district. And we also were hoping to have a little bit more leeway with this law. I agree with a lot of the things that the new law proposes. I don't really want to live next door to an Airbnb per se. That's strictly bought for that purpose of short-term rentals. But as a homeowner, I would like the freedom to be able to rent out my home at times when we're not using it primarily. David and I are recently empty nesters. I'm sure a lot of other people here are. And the opportunity to rent our home out a few weeks a year when we're traveling would certainly enable us to keep our home longer, you know, as opposed to leaving it sooner, because it would help augment some of the income and the travel and stuff like that, give us a little bit more freedom. So as residents, we also would like to see a little bit more freedom with that. Maybe some time limits. I know they have a bit of research on other towns. So many weeks per year could be rented. Again, we agree, we don't necessarily want to live next door to a business, but we certainly wouldn't mind you know, greeting guests from out of town once in a while as neighbors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Roberta Rink. I'm at 987 Miles Square Road. And I'm against lodging like an Airbnb and Verbo. I have one that's right next door to me. I find that there's traffic concerns, people turning around in my driveway and backing out on a dangerous S-turn. I also have concern about septic issues, since my well's down below them and they're renting out for 15 to 17 people. So I really don't think a business should be in a residential area, or definitely R5, and I believe it's against the character of that.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name is Tom Gibbs. I'm at 670 Cheese Factory. I would simply like to speak in favor of the proposals as they've seen, been appearing on the internet and as we've read about them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Sheila Keys, 296 Taylor Road. I just kind of want to say, you know, with what Hillary said, my husband and I are also ministers and would like to, you know, travel and have that opportunity to rent our place out when we're gone. But yes, I'm totally against like having a business in a residential area, like having something that was strictly just Airbnb, but as my own personal property, and not have to go through like all this stuff that you're talking about.
Thank you.
But yeah, limited to weeks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Patty Lee, and for my foundation business. I am in favor of the proposal recognizes. I moved to RA5 area because I wanted it to be RA5 residential area. And actually, I'm told like that the tenant actually has a lights out night, and I would like that to be done too, because I kind of like to be able to see the stars at night. You know, the glow from Eastview Mall is bad enough that we don't need to have our neighbor's bright light shining all the time all around us. So I moved to Mendon specifically because it's very residential. It's out in the suburbs. I mean, lots of land around, and I chose the RA5 because I do like to have a lot of land around. And I do not want businesses next to me. I'd like to keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Before we move on to, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Margaret Theory, 383 Pond Road. We have 3 minutes on this, John.
Yes,
It might be
Yeah.
3 minutes and 7 seconds.
I don't know if you were here in the beginning.
No.
So this isn't the public hearing. This is public comment.
Public comment.
There's also a public hearing for each one of the proposed laws that you can speak at.
So this is
And-
for the Airbnb.
Pardon?
This is for the Airbnb, correct?
What we're doing right now
Yeah.
is public comment. You can talk about anything you want,
That's what I
including.
talk about.
Okay,
So it might be 3 minutes and 7 seconds. I'll go fast.
okay.
I've had the opportunity to read over the proposal. Each of you was elected by this town to represent each and every one of us collectively. You are not here to represent just your friends. When the moratorium was passed by this board in August of 2022, a fine of $2,000 was imposed for each violation. Tom, you said 2,000 is fair fine when you're charging $1,000 a night. The Gudamore's attorney objected at that fine. His clients were charging $350. The Gudamores are Brent's neighbors. Cynthia, you expressed that you live on a 3-acre lot and you do not want a different family every weekend renting. Since you've all passed this moratorium in August, Tom acknowledged in October that people were still Airbnb and verboing and no fines were assessed. Brent, you are aware of your neighbor renting from September 2022 to now into September of 2023. No fines have been assessed. I have a 56-acre property. As I stated before, I purchased this farm to regentrify it. I did not spend $700,000 to verbo an Airbnb. If this was the case, I would have bought a $250,000 home. I've invited each one of you to come to my property and to take a look at it and walk around. To this date, none of you have come by. I live across from a 1,000-acre preserve, 2 empty lots on the east of me and the west of me. Instead, you denied, when I applied for Airbnb, you denied my due process of this application. You never moved my application forward to the planning board. Instead, you requested additional information not in the application. You changed the RA5 code restricting any income to be made for all RA5, no events, apple picking, gatherings of such. You have then challenged my residency to whether or not I live here in the town. Brent's neighbors, the Gudamores, have not been challenged. Upon a favorable response from the zoning board, you decided to impose a moratorium. I have offered a sponsorship in 2022 to a baseball team here in the town. I was refused and wasn't even asked if I would do a banner. I guess the town baseball team doesn't need any money. I offered to sponsor one child for the summer camp here for every 7 days that I booked my Airbnb over the summer to send one child to camp. I guess you don't want me to sponsor any children to go to summer camp. I've done nothing to my neighbors. I've not driven on their driveway, drove over their mailbox, flown drones over their house, photographed their private events, photographed and published pictures of their homes. I have not stolen anything off my neighbor's property. These things have been done to me, and all of you have been culpable of this. Mob mentality has been directed at me since 2022. When people recklessly and knowingly tell lies, there are dire consequences. Whether or not you choose to believe this, but you are choosing to support your friends and not necessarily in the best interest of the town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Wayborn Coon, 1387 West Bloomfield Road. Personally, I feel like the mob mentality and the buddy thing is going on through the elected officials of the town. I've noticed that Mr. John Moffett has just rummaged through my house and gone through my outbuildings, taking photos and doing these little investigations that create a bunch of turmoil and drama, and all these things are just escalating. The Airbnb was said to be okay by the town, and then we're going back on the rules. I'm just confused and I'm questioning the competence of those elected.
Sir, I'd like to speak to you afterwards about your claims. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't think I've ever met you and I don't know where you live until you just gave your address. So I'd be interested. Have you lived here very long?
What?
You have, okay. All right, thank you. Who else would like to speak at this time? Yes,
My name is Bruce Lamb, 135 Pond Road. I would just like to I'd like to back the Fiories on what they've done to their property. My wife and I have lived on that road for 11 years, and that house sat vacant for years. So the time and money that they put into their house over there, which is really just their house, it's not necessarily B and B. It's just like you said, they're not gonna pay all that money just to rent out of their B and B. So the amount of money they put in and the charities that they would like to help out in our community, I think is fabulous. They don't even really live here full time. And so the fact that they want to be so involved, I think is great. Being a homeowner on that street, I have never, ever heard any sort of music, loud noises or anything coming from that house. When we first moved in, there was somebody on the way at the end of the street that would light off fireworks once in a while, have their personal show down there. And you never said anything. That's all right. But yeah, I'd just like to say, again, we've never heard anything coming from that house on any weekend night or weekday or anything. So just like to say that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Renee Williams, 12 Chambord Drive, Mendon. I think the idea of an Airbnb is phenomenal in the fact that folks put in a lot of work into their own properties. But I also need to speak on it as a child of parents who live next door to one. The amount of time that I thought I'd be spending in my retirement hanging out with my parents and being able to spend time with them has been negated by the amount of time I spend helping the Airbnb staying working and cleaning off the things that end up in our yard that the owner does not take care of. He's also a sheriff, so I don't want to say that he doesn't know what is expected. But I will tell you, I spend probably 8 hours every 2 weeks just cleaning up, fixing up, and that doesn't even account for the nights of sleep that my parents have called to say, it's so loud over there, we've tried to contact somebody, nobody will come. There have been beautiful people that have been over there who have been very kind. You know, when we were out in the driveway, they'd say hello. But I have to say that that's less than what I have seen on the other side. My daughter, her third apartment, she thought she would have the whole upper floor, another apartment was downstairs. Their second year into the lease, the bottom changed into an Airbnb. Ask her how many nights she's really slept well, even though all the Airbnb rules say no parties, no loud noise after this time. They call for help, no one comes because no one has time for that. But it has been nothing but an ongoing issue in my family with 2 members of my family. So I'm not excited at all about having somebody next door yet again for me to take care of.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
As a general concept, I've been staying in Airbnbs everywhere from California to Maine for the last 10, 15 years, as long as they've existed. Some of them have been on estates, some of them have been in city locations, pretty much have stayed in every shape and form. One on the farm, I remember. My concern is that we can't seem to find a way to make it work. Instead of we're just all of a sudden gonna ban it. I think this is a much more nuanced issue than the way we're approaching it. I'm also concerned as a citizen in general, because we have a great lack of affordable housing. And there's probably no more evident anywhere else. Mendon is just a prime example. I mean, housing here is expensive. And we have a lack of affordable housing across the country. Nothing new, and it's nothing unique to our area. But you know, and maybe this isn't a short-term rental issue, but it would be nice if there were affordable short-term rentals. For a variety of people that, you know, for whatever reason, some sort of disaster strikes their house and it's been for a few weeks, so the contractor just gets out of the whatever blew up or caught on fire or whatever. You know, two more, you know, challenging situations of abuse or whatever. Anyway, I guess I don't know, I'm not schooled enough on the intricacies of various A1, A2, A3, all this kind of thing. And I certainly appreciate, the idea of people wanting to live in the country for us to be quiet. I grew up here as a kid, and back then it was, Millersville, and so I never came back, but I lived in Brighton and I wanted more land, and I moved out there. Unfortunately, somebody decided to build a house, 25 feet from the property. That sure wasn't anything I could do about it. I was not happy about it. I tried to fight it, but I couldn't. But anyway, back to my overall point, which is, I think we need to approach this issue in a much more nuanced fashion. Blanket, we're gonna ban this, ban that, ban the next thing, I don't think is the way to go. I think we need to, and the idea that, no one's enforcing it, well, let's put some laws in place to force somebody to enforce it. If we need to have that cost or that expense come back to the people who own the Airbnb, then let's make it so. But I just really believe we need to make this a little more nuanced and not such a blanket,
Thank you. Anyone else? Corey?
Go ahead.
Oh, wow.
I think all of you know me. So for those of you who don't know, up until very recently, I had a very prosperous small company LLC, small business, that was privately contracted to a property in the town of Mendon. And up until your moratorium, that was my full-time job. And you took it away. And now I had to seek employment outside of your town. And as you both all know, and for anybody that doesn't know, I am the Honey Falls Fire Chief. And as this board identified, we have a huge problem of volunteerism in this town. And since you took my job away from me, my job is now out of town and I am not available anymore. That's a big problem. My LLC employed local college and high school kids to help me on the property. They employed 2 different other small businesses in this town that are in your town that I contracted with to do business. People at this property that stayed there, Airbnb, small rentals, whatever, short-term rentals, whatever it was. You did your gas station, your grocery store, your bars, they contributed to your town and you took it away. The ripple effects of what you have done are pretty serious and go well beyond pissed off neighbors. And just for the record, one more time, you took my job away from me. 76 Monroe Street. Michelle, let you know that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. John.
Excuse me. Let's stay on point of order here. Who else would like to speak at this time during public comment?
David Stott, 75 Link Path. So I guess I'm more of a question for the.
This is not question and answer. This is public comment. You can
Okay.
comment anything you'd like. If you want to contact me for question and answer, you're more than welcome to. You
Well,
can email.
thanks a lot.
Whoa, don't interrupt me now. You can email me, you can call me, but this is not a question and
This
answer.
isn't between you and I.
It's not between you and the board either.
So if I was to ask a question, have you ever looked at any alternatives to a blanket ban?
As
That
I
would be
said,
proper?
we're not taking questions. This is public comment. I'm being respectful to you and everyone else. Everybody's going to play by the same rules.
So I guess I'm just gonna say, I agree that I think the board, and maybe Mr. Boyce, should look into different options other than an outright ban. We have, I just real quickly went on, we have 882 rentals available in Monroe County, 37 in Pittsburgh, 29 in Victor. So somehow it's working for other communities. And have we looked into the fact that maybe there's ways that it could work here rather than an outright ban?
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Sure.
But also, I think is, as a person, and you, taxes are high here. And if somebody has, an accessory dwelling unit, it may allow them, that income from that may allow them to continue to live here, to continue to be a resident in Mendon, and without getting to afford to do so. And I'd like to second what you said about the ripple effect of people spending money at all the other businesses in the community. Because I know for a fact that happens, because that's what I do when I travel, and like I said, I'm using this there, you need to go on. Thanks.
Thank you. don't want to cut anybody off. I'm reminded this is still short term, or there's still a public hearing here. Go ahead, sir.
The second time around, I think the issue of affordable housing is a complicated one, and certainly I'm no expert, but if you listen to the radio and read the newspaper, it seems that most people say that the creation of Airbnbs hurts the availability of available housing, because people turn these houses into commercial operations, and then they're no longer available for people who want to live there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Just before I open the public hearings, I just want to make sure that everyone understands a couple of things here. First of all, there's two local laws. One is for short-term rentals within the town of Mendon. This would propose to revise the code, and a separate one for bed and breakfast establishments. Under the proposed laws, bed and breakfast would continue to be permitted throughout the town of Mendon, provided they meet certain criteria and receive a special use permit. The proposed laws better define the difference between bed and breakfast and short-term rental. Also, under the proposed laws, short-term rentals would only be permitted in the business district and the business district in the economic district on the west side of town. Local businesses and restaurants can benefit from tourism and visitors. Short-term rentals would need to meet certain criteria and obtain an operating permit from the town board. These proposed laws would not impact properties within the village of Honey Eye Falls, nor would it affect any month-to-month leases. In other words, just so everyone's clear, the village of Honey Eye Falls is not your mailing address. It's this 30-mile-an-hour zone where we are now. That's the village of Honey Eye Falls. So any of this that we're considering would not affect anything within the confines of the village of Honey Eye Falls. Also, if you were renting your property month to month, it does not affect that as well. I think there's when these two laws were drafted, it was done because there is a difference between short-term and a bed and breakfast. And we wanted to set those differences aside. Basically, it's a hosted event as a bed and breakfast and an unhosted event as a short-term rental. As mentioned, so we'll continue now with the agenda. We'll move on to number 5, which.
John, before you open the public hearing.
Sure.
I'd like to make the statement once again that I've made before we've gone into any of this over our multiple meetings, that we do have a proposed short-term rental next to my property and adjacent neighbor. I have no conflict with that neighbor. I have no interest in that neighbor. So I'm able to look at this with an open mind and act impartially. And I will make that statement next time we have this meeting also. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, we're going to open the public hearing on local law number 1, which is short-term rentals. So I'm going to open the meeting at 7:28 p.m. Once again, if you could please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. The same rules apply. Once everybody has a chance to speak, if someone wants to speak a second time, you're more than welcome to do that. Please provide your name and address. You can speak from your seat, stand up, speak from the podium, wherever you're comfortable. Is there anyone who would like to speak during tonight's public hearing? Yes, ma'am.
Sandra Finn, 1525 West Main. I would like to see short-term rental in the area. I've got sisters in Louisiana, China, and California. I can't get my entire family in my house. But the last time they came, yeah, Henrietta. Okay, it's not the same. I can't get them down to come to the cottage because they want to eat and drink near where they're staying. We've got a lovely orchard. I'm pretty sure that this is gorgeous out here. I would like my family to be able to enjoy it. And I can't have that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I think there've been a lot of objections, the people that are objecting to the Airbnb situation. But what was your name? Molly. So like Molly, I've also traveled a lot and stayed in many Airbnb. And I would say many of them have been in close proximity to other neighbors. And also I've stayed in people's homes where they just like rent a room out and I walk in and I have access to a room. So it's been lovely. And Airbnb does a really good job of monitoring you as a visitor also. So like you kind of get like stars or whatever, you get rated, right, Molly? So if you are a person who is reported as not being a good neighbor or getting complaints and things like that, you're probably not going to be able to rent the type of Airbnb that you're going to want to anywhere, right?
Excuse me, one person speaking at a time, please.
The other thing is, what point are we at right now? Is this like making the law today?
Again, we're not doing questions and answers. This is, these are two proposed laws. And this is a public hearing so that you can tell us what you think about those laws.
Okay, so it's different than the public comment.
It's a public hearing.
All right, I guess. So anyway, where was I going with this? I think that there's like possibility to make restrictions to some of the objections that people have about Airbnb. You know, so maybe we need to like think a little bit more about how we can regulate it a little bit. Nobody's suggesting that we just open our homes to anybody to come in and do whatever you want to do. So we all expect there to be laws to have to abide by and be respectful. And we want people to be respectful to our homes if we're going to open them up.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
So it's a,
Your name and address?
oh, Sheila Keys, 96 Taylor. So we're talking about like business areas and residential. What about farms and agribusiness? I don't feel that that's really been addressed here. And I mean, I'm unclear how it falls and also, what about like my husband and I we have a farm. We have a maple syrup farm. And people would like to come and what about like parking a camper on our property overnight? I'm not sure if that's been addressed.
Thank you. Just so everyone knows, there's two maps at the back. One is the entire zoning map of the town of Mendon, and the other one is kind of a blown up version, and it's on the screen there. That is a blown up version of the pink area is the business district in the hamlet of Mendon.
Larry Scott, 75 Langpath Road. I just wanted to share too, so we do own a house that we Airbnb right now while we're waiting to retire down on Shoot Lake in Hammondsport. And what past 4 years that we've owned it, I think I only had one renter that I had to give a negative review to. And the way the review process works, to speak to Chris and Marcia, that it's a blind review. So people can't see what you're saying about them before they review you. So I'm sorry that your parents' neighbors are just so awful about that, but we review very honestly, and Airbnb will actually take someone right off the platform if they don't follow the rules. And that means they can't rent anywhere through Airbnb. I believe Verbo does the same thing. So I've been very blessed, or we've been very blessed. Our neighbors on Cooper Lake are great tattletales. They always tell us, oh, you're so great, or oh my gosh, I think that family had more people than you require. And you can set those limits as well as parking limits on Airbnb. So some of the things that are in here in terms of cars and parking, you can literally say to your guests, there's only a parking spot for one car. So say you have a family of 4 coming, and like in the hamlet, one of our biggest problems, we don't have enough parking for one spot per bedroom. But most Airbnb guests come all in one car. And a lot of times they want to stay in these little areas where they can walk around anyway. The point isn't to come to Honey Falls to drive around. The point is to come to Honey Falls to walk around and go to the coffee shops and experience it. Maybe they're here visiting family. So I think some of the things that we have conflicts with are really taken care of beautifully within that platform. And I've had really great success. I'm considered a super host because of it. And there are people that I will not have returned to my home you know, just because they did bring in too many people. Or I've never had anything like really bad or anything really bad, but maybe it wasn't a good fit because, you know, they didn't leave it as clean and tidy as I would like. But I rely on my neighbors for that input. And I think that's partially why I am a super host and that my neighbors really are supportive. And so I think there are ways that we can make it work so that it's respectful of each other and our community and still allowing people to come and visit our beautiful area.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Edward Ballister, 2 Kingsbridge Lane. I have vacation property in Cape Vincent. My neighbor does the Airbnb, and my main concern is he had guests come over on my property using my dock when I wasn't there, which makes possibility of somebody getting hurt on my property, then I'm sued. That's one of my main concerns right there.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So I'm Roberta Rink, 987 Miles Square Road, and I understand like lakes, vacation properties, I've done Airbnb too, but I'm in a residential area, R5, and it's like a hotel up on the hill for me. So there's 4 or 5 cars there at a time. I think there's opportunities to have parties, large families. I just don't think it's not for our residential Mendon area.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
I'm Wendy Greer at 175 Drumlin View Drive. And last fall, I noticed that the leaves were piling up in my neighbor's lawn. And over a period of weeks, I saw that she wasn't doing what she usually did, which was go out and clean them. So I went over and took care of that. And the reason I mentioned this isn't for that a girl, Wendy, good job, but because I feel that an Airbnb or having a neighbor is watching their patterns and knowing how to help them and when to help them while still giving them their privacy. And I really feel that an Airbnb would ruin the social infrastructure of the neighborhood. I also feel that when I travel down the road, I happen to know where the kids are, where the dogs are, where there could be an accident. And I'm very careful driving through my neighborhood. And I think that people that aren't familiar with the area could very well might not use as much care going through my neighborhood. And I moved to Mendon, not as a tourist destination, but a home for my kids.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have a comment, but it's not mine. So do you want me to read it as my name or do you want it from the person who wrote it? Right.
How did you receive? Is this someone,
My husband.
somebody who wants to comment?
Yes.
I have an email from him earlier today. Is this
I
that?
don't know.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
It says, as a town board, you are limited to land use authority to align with the strategic plan, which was well thought out, which with input from the third-party advisor, property owner focus groups, and current and former members of the town board. You have done neither a publication of the moratorium committee's process nor a comparative and assessment to the other towns in the county and the impact to us as property owners as well as business owners that benefit from this type of tourism income. You have irresponsibly disallowed 90% town zoning districts with no framework of variance consideration for the zoning board, thus making our town unsupportive of the county's tourism revenue expectations, which fully ultimately increase our property tax assessment in the future. Wrote, there is a change.org titled Town of Mendon with a petition of 340 plus people in favor of Airbnb and Verbos in the town of Mendon. Agricultural tourism is a business that needs to be supported by this town to preserve local family-owned farms. Otherwise, we will become a bedroom community of housing development with no gainful employment opportunity to support an agricultural community.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak at this time? Yes, sir.
I'm Mike McCray, 3021 North Linden Road. I'm just listening and taking it all in, and I would say we seem to live in a country of extremes, one side or the other. Either you love it or hate it. I thought there was a great point made earlier about the nuanced approach, meaning that there could be some reasonableness of 5 versus being at one end of the stick or the other. I think as a community, we have to have the professional and social maturity to be able to balance not the left, not the right, but the center, and find a common ground in that nuanced approach.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. I'm Tim Sheafet, 1350 Pittsford Mendon Road. You don't know who I am? You don't live in Mendon. Okie dokie. I've been around here a long time. Was part of the 2005 Town of Mendon Master Plan Review Committee. I've heard issues like this time and time again. First step to sensible laws is this process regulated. Edward, did you know that there's a state law that says if a person enters your property without your knowledge or permission, as long as you don't charge them to be there, they can't sue you?
I did not know that.
There is such a law. It's very dusty. Sheldon, do you know about that law?
It's
not a question and answer.
I know, I'm sure you can. So, ladies and gentlemen, some kid rides across your yard on a dirt bike, wipes out. Yeah, I'm sure Shapiro and Shapiro or something, I'm not gonna ignore. But there's a state law intended to protect that. It's intended to encourage people to get out, do things, walk, hike, enjoy. The pitchfork carriers and the torch lighters that came after us when we proposed linear trail came with all these fears and concerns. Do we all agree that the linear trail through our community is wonderful factor? I sure do. And I'm proud that I was on the ground floor of that, even though I sat in a position just like those people and had to listen to all the naysayers and the, oh my God, you're gonna bring riffraff into my backyard. Right? Now that it's all settled, we have a very valuable asset. So processes like these are important. Affordable housing. Oh, good Lord. I said that a couple times in the town of Mendon. You should have heard the jeers and the sneers and seen the anger on faces when I proposed affordable housing in the town of Mendon. How dare I? What I was talking about was a place for our kids to live. Apartments above businesses where the parking is not an issue. All right, times have changed over the past 20+ years. We have a much more considerate town board. We have more progressive people bringing smartness to the decision-making process. So I hope to see the approach to regulation continued with consideration to those who have commented this evening. I'm neither for nor against. I am for a beautiful place to be, a nice place to live. Last question. Rhetorical. Who polices the patrons of the short-term rentals? Let's leave with that thought. Who are the people you call when the riffraff is up at 3 a.m. in the morning? Who are the people you call when these people you don't know are in your yard doing things you wish they weren't? We can call the sheriffs. Maybe they'll come, maybe they won't. But who is going to believe the policies that will be laid forth by this legislation? That's where we got to really figure this out, okay? And I understand the purpose for that. If I have an apartment, I'm checking up on that apartment. I'm getting my rent. Every so often, I maybe am driving by or pulling in, seeing how things are. I'm talking to the neighbors, the adjacent people. What's going on? People are calling me, hey, this asshole you rented the apartment to was playing his music before 4 a.m. in the morning. All right, so I understand the fears and concerns. I understand the desire to rent your place out if you're not using it. Get it? There's gotta be a happy meeting ground that this can be. So I would ask that this process includes input from those that are here, those is right, those that are concerned, but ladies and gentlemen, it's all up to us to stay educated and to be able to come here and speak peacefully and come to a compromise. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Anyone else?
I want to piggyback on that. When
Ma'am, could you give your name and
sorry,
address?
Chelsea Thompson, I'm on 59 Ontario Street. To me, this feels a little bit scarily like I'm being controlled about what I'm able to do in my own property. And it makes me wonder where those kind of bans could creep. Like, what will I be banned from growing vegetables that are somebody in my neighbor's yard doesn't like? Or if I have a large dog that barks, can I not have that dog anymore because it bothers someone? Those are very historically issues you solve one-on-one with your neighbor. They're not typically something the town decides whether or not I can do on my property. So to me, I feel like the more bans, the more everybody will eventually regret the bans that were made when they decide they need to find a way to make money for themselves, however that may be, whether it's growing vegetables or renting out a room or having a stand at the edge of your driveway. I don't think these are things that we make rules or laws about. I think these are things we talk with our neighbors about.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Maybe something to consider, and I didn't thought this through thoroughly, so maybe there's something as well. Perhaps again, instead of a complete outright ban, whatever, we can consider something where it's allowed on a trial basis, a few months or a year, and see how it goes. Maybe some kind of complete hotline or something. And if they get more than 2 or 3 complaints, then they can move on to the decision. Or if they don't, they can't. I mean, I'm a landlord in another town in Montgomery, and one of the first things I did when I bought that property was I went around to all the neighbors and informed them that I was going to rent it, gave them my name and number, and said, if you ever have a problem with this property, call me directly. In 21 years, no one's ever called me. Because I'm responsive. But anyway, that's what it's different. But anyway, again, some things like that, maybe you could allow it at least on a trial basis. And I'm not going to say there aren't bad ones because I stayed in but yeah, I just would like to see it being considered more instead of just outright signature.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there a motion to close the public hearing on short-term rentals?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next, we have number 6 on the agenda, which is a public hearing regarding local law number 2 of 2023, bed and breakfast establishments, opening the public hearing at 7:49 p.m. Once again, I'm not going to bore you with the same rules. So if you'd like to comment, please raise your hand and we'll go through the motions. There's the bed and breakfast law there, and if you have an agenda, it's included in your package. Yes, sir.
I feel a little bit awkward taking the 4th and the 3rd time here, but building on the comments of someone else just a moment ago of doing things on a trial basis. Perhaps the proposals which are on the table can be put in effect with a sunset provision, say that only lasts for 5 years, at which point it could be reviewed.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay. I wanted to mention that I did receive comments from the following. Mr. Fiore, those were emailed. Mr. Gascon, the Men in Business Association, which spoke earlier, and do you have anybody online, Michelle, who wishes to speak?
One person.
Nobody, okay. Anybody else who wishes to speak during this time of the public hearing? Okay, great. Is there a motion to close tonight's public hearing on short-term, or excuse me, bed and breakfast?
So moved.
Oop,
James.
I'll say it.
okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We're now back to our second public comment. Once again, you're welcome to speak about anything you'd like. Buddy. Tim?
I'm Tim Sheehan, 1550 Fitzgerald Road. Let's talk about trash. Recently, there's been a number of refuse collectors who have changed from a rear loaded dumpster to a front loaded dumpster. And now these things get picked up over the truck, flipped upside down, the trash goes everywhere. Take a look around. That poor guy at 20 Deep's out picking up the trash every week. That poor guy at Mendon Village Commons is out picking up trash every week. My neighbor doesn't pick up any trash, and I got all this blue plastic floating around in my trees. I think the town board should make a joint effort into reaching out to these refuse haulers that operate in this town and ask them what they're going to do about the messes they're creating now that we have all these front-loaded dumpsters in our commercial districts. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Anyone else, I should say? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you for coming.
And thank you for your comments.
Sir, you say I trespassed on your property? I think it's closer to me. What's that?
Mr. John Moffett residing at 46 Ontario Street. Okay, so you're contacted by Michael Fund, 479